Okay, I will do it slightly different. I do it like this, because then I know. So we as RBM, we are a global community. We are supported by the main accreditation bodies like the ASAB, Prime and EFMD, as well as a number of eminent scholars that represent different social science disciplines. Our RBM's vision is for business school and scholars worldwide to successfully transform research towards responsible science, producing credible knowledge and relevant knowledge that is ultimately useful for addressing problems important to business and societies. RBM's vision is based on belief that business can be a force for good when informed knowledge is in place for responsible business and responsible research. Responsible research ensures the production of credible knowledge that informs governmental policies and promotes positive business and management practices. Business and management research, in our view as a network, is a model for responsible science after a major transformation that began when RRBM was formed in 2014. We as a community, we call for action in order to make an impact beyond our academic community. We as RRBM call for actions, and we encourage not only you as a journal, but also other stakeholders to join us and support the position paper that we have developed in collaboration with the business school accreditation bodies in order to implement best practices centered on responsible research. Together, in our view, we can make that change. So what do we as a community define and understand as a responsible research? As a responsible research, we understand scientific work that produces credible knowledge, that prepares and allows students and other participants within the business school leadership tackle grand challenges of the 21st century, for example, inequality, poverty, sustainability, climate change. Responsible research produces credible and useful knowledge that helps society. This is our vision. Responsible RRBM would like to think that research can have an impact above and beyond educational roles of business schools, and that through research, business schools can prepare students and scholars, and as well as future decision makers and leaders to increase impact through their work. Responsible research includes two elements in our views. First is the responsibility to science. So we must produce as scientists reliable knowledge, reliable findings that are also replicable as discoveries. This is the credibility division and part of the responsible research. The second responsibility that responsible research has is its responsibility to society. Knowledge from science should improve human life on Earth. This means that positive business practices should be put in place in order to contribute to human well-being and sustainability of our planet. In our view, responsible research should go hand in hand with responsibility to society. These are not two separate elements. We, as a global network, we have certain principles, and there are 7 of them. And the first principle that is at the core of RRBM is the service to society. It's our foundation and at the center of what we do and what our vision is about. The second principle is value both basic and applied contribution to research. This basically relates to the fact that basic research provides understanding and shared predictions. Applied research aims to find reliable solutions to problems with or without the benefits of a strong theory. The third principle is valuing plurality, multidisciplinarity, and collaboration. And this refers to accepting different research themes, methods, form of inquiry, and collaboration. Diversity and innovation within applied within this principle is very important. The fourth principle is the sound methodology. And this basically means that this principle applies to both theory and building theory and theory testing, studies that use either quantitative or qualitative methodology. We do not differentiate between qualitative and quantitative research with regards to its inferior or superior level. The fifth principle is stakeholder involvement, and it's about engaging relevant stakeholders in the research, from defining the research questions to collecting data, interpreting the results. And the final principle, the sixth principle is the impact on stakeholders. It recognizes and rewards research studies that bring a positive impact on diverse stakeholders and values knowledge that inform better business practices and better societies. And the last principle that RBM stands for and promotes is the broad dissemination of our findings as a scientific community. So we as a community, we work with many stakeholders. We have many actions, and as you have launched a new journal, our action to journal editors is to ensure that not only the work that is submitted to the journal is of relevance, but also of methodological credibility and rigor. So for example, RBM do support that through hosting special issues on responsible business agendas or methodological issues that can produce relevant, credible, and trustworthy knowledge. We actively work together with various scholarly associations, such as like Academy of Marketing, Academy of Management, Academy of International Business. We host a number of meetings, we host a number of editorials, so that's how we support journals within our community. So what have we learned so far? We've learned that research takes place in a connected ecosystem. Changing such ecosystem requires positive conspiracy, where both academic and non-academic parties are involved. Problems can be solved at once. So we know that patience and persistence are important. After all, scientific work should lead to flourishing, not perishing. As a leading association, we are supporting such an approach, and we are strongly encouraging you to join us as a community, because we can build a better, more credible, trustworthy, and impactful future with regard to scientific work, because knowledge should be credible and useful. Thank you. Thank you very much, and I apologize for the technical difficulties.
Thank you, Dr. Aggie. This was very insightful. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, hello. I have a question. Is there, I mean, you mentioned a couple of criteria for sustainable and responsible research. But if you look at the research practice, shouldn't it have these criteria in general? So what is really the difference between an ethics of a researcher right now and a sustainable researcher, or a researcher who is conducting a practice according to sustainable standards? The criteria you mentioned, the 7 principles, I think they should be applied in general.
I agree with you. In my experiences, when I talk to colleagues around the world, and when I mention the word responsible business, the things that come to their mind is sustainability, okay, SDG goals. But responsible business goes beyond the phenomenon, which is sustainability itself or SDG goals. Responsible business is about the principle, is about the values that we as academic community have. For some reason, those values have been lost in certain regions because of the publish and perish culture, which also relates to the institutional incentives. So we as a positive conspiracy, that's what we are called, we're trying to bring sort of the scientific community to its core, to the values, to the ethics. Because publishing, being successful in publishing doesn't mean that you only have to publish in a first-up journal. Publishing should be leading to flourishing, to impact, whichever journal you publish. You shouldn't be judged by the star, by the ABS list. So I agree with you. We promote the principles as a responsible research as a whole. It's the values and how you conduct your scientific inquiry from the beginning. It's not just a phenomenon that you investigate. If that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. But would you think then that you want to measure, or is the intention to measure the influence on practice? I mean,
what we promote is that the work we do should be relevant. So you need to design your scientific, let's say, inquiry within the values and principles that I've mentioned, but the way you design, it should have an impact, okay? It should be relevant to the local community, whether this is regional, national, international. So we know that the pressing themes or phenomena, if you like, nowadays are sustainability, climate change. So we can design my research project, if you like, within that theme in a more rigorous, trustworthy way. There are, as I don't know if you're aware, but a number of journals are adopting the top guidance and are requesting, let's say, that the data that is used in empirical research is being submitted. I understand that due to GDPR, that might not always be possible. That might not always be possible due to the ethical issues and complications with the respondents. But in order to build that credibility, replication, a number of journals starting to require that authors submit data. Mm-hmm. So this is part of the credible, trustworthy research, mm-hmm. putting the phenomenon itself on the side. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because a number of scientific projects are funded by external bodies. Yeah. So they also have obligations. So responsible research is broader, in my view, than just the phenomenon itself. It's the conduct as a scientist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
So I guess because we are here to promote the launch of the new journal. So the journal itself has a certain role that can play within the publishing space in order to position itself within the responsible business, within a particular market or community. Yeah. And editors as the leaders can influence the production of the sustainability of that scientific work by sort of strategically position the journal within the publishing space.
Yeah. Totally agree. I think I share these principles, and I share your vision, and I hope that we can collaborate in the future to, you know, propel this collective vision forward. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, because we as scientists, we have a lot of options where we publish our work.
Yeah.
Our choices are determined by institutional incentives that relate to promotion criteria.
Mm-hmm.
In certain journals, the space can be crowded. So it's how a particular journal position itself within the space, as well as the work that the journal publishes.
Yeah, I get that, and I get also that you know, it's a competitive landscape. I do understand that very well, but I mean, I think as academics and as scholars, we share a collective vision that goes beyond this competition. You know, it is not a matter of you know, publishing just like you mentioned, a 4-star publication. It goes beyond that. Sharing the vision of journals like, for example, MSAR or others, is what will propel this journal forward. You know, it's basically this vision that goes beyond the competition for publication space, or, you know, I think this is a key issue. And I think also I would relate to one of the issues that you mentioned also, which is the overemphasis of rigor at the expense of relevance. I think in MSAR, we have a philosophy of advocating relevant research that goes beyond particular methodologies. And therefore, you know, we can say that relevance takes precedence over rigor, in a sense, as long as international standards are still, of course, maintained for conducting research. But we do welcome transparency, and we do welcome engaging with international community on several levels. As long as, like I said, we welcome research that comes not just from Arab scholars, but also those based in international institutions, whether they are you know, of Arab origin or not, that they are actually conducting research that just matches the journal theme and scope. Then they are welcome to submit their papers to this journal. So I look forward very much to cooperating with you in the future. And hopefully that we can actually collaborate, whether in face-to-face settings or in virtual conferences like this workshop today. I do hope and value your active support. And I think this is the only way forward, which is basically to engage international institutions such as the RBM or the UN Prime or other initiatives. Yeah. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. And we as a RBM, as a community, we are very welcome, very open and cooperative, okay? And I would encourage you to join our summits, our workshops, which are for free. We offer a free service in order to promote responsible research. So I would basically encourage an active participation within the network. And I know that one of your colleagues have completed the Dare to Care Scholarship PhD Masterclass about foundation principles and approach to how to conduct research. So that's another initiative. We also running, apart from collaborating with journals, we also running a Dare to Care Scholarship schemes for PhD students. So we do a lot of initiatives that can help to strengthen responsible research collaborations and things like that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Yasmin, would you like to share your presentation and proceed?
Yes, just a second. All right, can you all see my screen now? Perfect. First of all, I'm sorry, my screen name says another name. I'm Yasmin, but I had to log in from a different laptop, someone else's laptop. That's why there's a different name on there. Okay, so today I'm going to be presenting part of my research on marketing and the Sustainable Development Goals. Basically, it's case studies from Egypt. And so I'm going to be talking about an introduction to the concepts as a start, then the research gap and the aim of the research, the methodology, the findings, implications, and the limitations and possible directions for future research. Okay, so for an intro to the concepts, I'm sure as most of you know, investors and consumers, they've both come to realize that corporates and companies in general have a huge impact on the environmental and social factors that will enable sustainable societies in the future. And according to the Global Sustainable Investment Alliance in 2018, global sustainable investment was estimated at $30 trillion, which is a tenfold increase since 2004, and that's very promising. And interestingly, in a study conducted across 6 international markets, 2/3 of the consumers stated that they think they have a responsibility to purchase products that are good for the environment and for society. And significantly, the number of consumers who had this view was actually higher in developing countries than in developed countries. And now if we come to sustainability and marketing, marketers have a huge responsibility in shaping sustainability practices, whether internally within their corporations or externally by influencing the customers. And since it's acknowledged that the private sector nowadays, they can make significant contributions to sustainability by helping achieve the Sustainable Development Goals or the SDGs, more research is required to uncover how companies can make these contributions and what's the nature of these contributions and how we can speed them up. Now, some firms have already developed successful ways to design either sustainable products or services, or to disseminate more information about sustainability to their consumers or track their supply chains in a sustainable way. So this is all a good start, but more information is still needed in terms of details on this. Now, sustainability in business is defined as the process of meeting current stakeholders' needs while not diminishing the capability to address their needs in the future. And one concrete way of measuring sustainability or sustainable development is through the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals that were set by the United Nations in 2015, along with the private sector and NGOs and governments. And since their establishment in 2015, it's been expected that investments in both the public and the private spheres will be aimed towards projects that are helping fulfill the SDGs. And based on that, what I found was that there's a research gap in terms of sustainability in relation to marketing and corporates. The available literature does not analyze the evolution of sustainability in marketing. And at the same time, a lot of the research tends to examine a singular dimension of sustainability, so either economic, environmental, or social, but it doesn't tackle sustainability as a whole. It doesn't tackle the 3 pillars of sustainability together. And at the same time, research framing sustainability comprehensively in marketing tends to be very theoretical instead of practical, such as the models proposed by LIM in 2016 or the Green Framework of Sustainable Marketing developed by Lunde in 2018. They're both theoretical. And based on this gap, the aim of this research was to uncover thorough information about how companies in Egypt are setting the sustainability strategy and reporting on it, and how the marketing function is involved in sustainability. Now, this research contributes to several domains of knowledge. Of course, sustainability, specifically corporate sustainability, and the relationship between corporate social responsibility and sustainability, sustainable marketing, and the Sustainable Development Goals in terms of strategy and reporting. And the stakeholders that this research contributes to or has an effect on are definitely corporates, both the marketing function and the CSR function, scholars in the sustainability field, CSR and marketing, policymakers, and consumers as a result as well. Now, as for the methodology for this research, to identify companies in Egypt that carry out sustainability efforts, 3 main actions were taken. The first was that I referred to the list of companies on the United Nations Global Compact Network in Egypt. And I checked out their websites to see more information about sustainability practices. That was one track. And the other track was I searched for companies that are conducting sustainability practices in Egypt, even if they weren't part of the UN Global Compact Network. And I basically contacted them. So as you can see on my slides, some of the companies I interviewed were part of the UNGC, and some were not. They were non-members. And how it went was that it was purposive criterion sampling. I started out with 20 companies because they were all identified to be carrying out sustainability practices. And then a total of 17 were contacted. 12 of them responded. However, 2 ended up being excluded because they were not issuing sustainability reports. And so I ended up with 10 cases. And for those of you who are not living in Egypt, I just want to say that companies that are following sustainability practices are still not many. So that's also why the number isn't huge. And that's why it was easier to filter them, basically. Okay, so the companies fell into different industries. 4 of them were FMCGs, 2 were in the banking industry, 1 was in the automotive industry, 1 was in the textile industry, and 2 were holding companies. Now, as for the findings, I grouped the findings into 5 main categories, and I'll take you through each of them right now. The first one was related to sustainability strategy. And here, 7 out of the 10 companies were found to incorporate the SDGs into their sustainability strategy. And these are the companies, as you can see here, Mars, Seacom, Alex Bank. So they fall into different industries. And even though each of these organizations, they each had a unique sustainability strategy, all of them managed to integrate the Sustainable Development Goals into their sustainability strategies. And for example, one of the holding companies, Roya, their sustainability and CSR director said that the group's aim is to align their sustainability initiatives with the SDGs, basically because they've become the most important or the most prominent way to measure sustainability. The second set of findings was related to marketing involvement in setting the sustainability strategy. And here, 2 out of the 10 companies showed marketing involvement in the sustainability strategy. One is Edita, which is a fast-moving consumer goods company, and the other one is Sharabati Denim, which is a textile company. And in both of these companies, the marketing function's role was limited to assessing whether the sustainability efforts carried out by the companies would be viewed in a way that is negative by consumers. So, for example, I will show you specifically what each of the companies said. So at Sharabati, the denim manufacturers, the marketing coordinator said that because sustainability efforts implemented in the production process sometimes affect the final product, the customer has to approve of the product before it is produced in large batches and sold. So if the potential customer is not happy with the end result, then further alterations are made to the production process to be able to satisfy both sustainability standards and the customer's needs. And as for Edita, the FMCG, their senior investor relations analyst said that since the marketing team is closest to the customer, they're expected to assess the feasibility of any sustainability efforts from the customer's point of view. So when it comes to taste, quality, and so on. So this is what the marketing department, these are the factors the marketing department are involved with, or is involved with. The third group of findings was related to reporting on the SDGs. And here, 7 out of the 10 companies reported on the SDGs. 4 of these companies used official reporting standards, specifically the GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative. And some of the companies that did not use official reporting standards still reported on the SDGs. And most of them did not report on specific targets under the SDGs, just the SDGs in general. And all of the representatives from these companies, they shared the view that it is now critical to report on the SDGs since they have become the fundamental way in measuring the sustainability concept. And the fourth set of findings was related to reporting on marketing practices in the sustainability report. And here, 2 out of the 10 companies reported on their marketing activities in their sustainability reports. Both of these companies were in the FMCG industry, but one is a multinational, Mars, and the other one, Juhayna, is an Egyptian company. And the fifth set of findings is related to the relationship between CSR and sustainability. So here, companies that do not have a CSR department, or some companies were found that they do not have a CSR department and they do not treat CSR as a standalone activity. So one example of this is Sekem. Sekem is a company that they work in several fields. So they produce textiles, they also produce FMCGs, they work in several areas. But from the start, they've been set up as a sustainable company. So everything they do is based on sustainability. They don't just have a CSR department or a sustainability department, because since they started, they've incorporated sustainability across all their business dimensions. So this is one form of the companies and how they integrate CSR and sustainability with their operations. Then there's another set of companies who have reconstructed their traditional CSR unit into the CSR and shared value unit, and they ensure that all their CSR efforts are sustainable. So one of the example of this is Alex Bank, and this is what their new department setup looks like. So they have a CSR and shared value unit, they have a social performance and reporting unit, and they have a sustainable finance for development unit. They all work together, but they've basically divided the main tasks across them. And as we can see, CSR now has to make sure that all the activities they carry out are sustainable, which wasn't the case around 5 years ago. This is all new. And then the third set of companies have a CSR department that handles the sustainability strategy and views CSR as a forerunner to sustainability. And one of these companies was Raya, the holding group, where sustainability initiatives and strategy are handled by the CSR manager, basically. And to them, CSR has to come first and to be set up in the organization. And then they try to implement sustainability gradually across the different companies, because it's a holding company. So what they're doing right now is that they have CSR across all the companies, but gradually they carry out sustainability. They're taking it one step at a time. So each of the companies under the holding group are being introduced to sustainability almost on a yearly basis. So as we can see, basically from the different types of companies and how they're implementing CSR and sustainability, is that each company defines CSR in its own terms, and the definition is customized by the company itself, depending on its history, such as Sekem and how they started out with sustainability from the start, and its operations and the way the company functions. So these are for the findings. As for the implications, now the research demonstrates that the marketing function gets involved with sustainability, mostly in the condition that consumers are affected by sustainability or concerned with it. And portraying the ways in which companies are applying CSR and sustainability helps in forming more up-to-date definitions of both concepts, specifically within a developing country such as Egypt. And the companies included in the study can be referred to as best practices by companies who are still not advanced in their sustainability adoption journey, which is most of the companies in Egypt right now. As for the limitations and directions for future research, now, one of the limitations was that this research excluded micro, small, and medium enterprises because basically the research only took companies that were issuing sustainability reports. And a lot of micro, small, and medium enterprises do not have the financial capability to produce a sustainability report. So this excluded them from the research. So further research could specifically focus on micro, small, and medium enterprises and how they're adopting sustainability and the SDGs, because this could lead to different findings than the large companies that were in the study. And a cross-sectional design was used in this research. The data was collected from the companies at a specific point in time. So a longitudinal study over several years could be used to monitor the evolution in the corporate adoption process of sustainability and the SDGs, which most probably will be happening at a rapid pace up to 2030 in an attempt to achieve the SDGs by 2030. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Yasmin. No questions from my side.
Okay.
So I have a question, just
Sure.
to have the conversation starting and continue. So you selected your sample. So what were your experiences with regards to definition of sustainability? Because you mentioned that there were different understandings within the companies.
Yes.
So what was your experience? And also, in your view, how were the companies within your sample positioned themselves within sustainability?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question because they did have different positioning. Some of the companies had just started, and they were honest about it. They said that we just started, we're working our way. We're working, for example, with consultants to help guide us on what we should do, and we're trying to achieve this gradually. Versus other companies, such as the one I was mentioning, Sekum, their whole business strategy is based on sustainability. So they would be considered very advanced, even compared to companies outside of the Middle East region. So there were big differences between the companies, but most of them are very concerned. And most of them are trying to achieve this. They're setting a time range for themselves, basically.
Thank you. And from the methodological point of view, have you came across any obstacles with regards to the crucial differences and understanding of the sustainability concept means to the companies?
So because this was more of an exploratory study, I wanted to see how they define it. So for example, when I went to interview them, I would define it, but then I'd also understand how they define it within the company, because this was part of my research. So for me, I just wanted to know how they define it instead of me enforcing a certain definition upon them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to know if your experience was as such. You said you did an explorative study.
Yeah.
Does the board take the responsibility, the ownership of sustainability, or do they delegate it to the marketing department?
No, it's the board. And it was a very important element because when I did speak to members from the marketing department, they said that it's very important that the board would support this. Otherwise, the other departments would not really be supportive of the initiative. Because a lot of the other departments, for example, they were actually resisting, for example, giving out certain, when it comes to reporting, sustainability reporting, for example, when it came out to giving certain information to create the sustainability report, they would be resistant. So unless there was support from the board, they probably wouldn't be willing to do this.
And did you get any information whether they incorporated this in their, let's say, target agreements with employees or so?
Yes, not in all of the companies, of course, but in most of the banks, they do have specific targets, and they even mention them in their sustainability reports. However, the targets, even though they're enforceable, if they don't achieve them, there isn't a certain, there's no sort of punishment or anything, to be honest. It's just the targets are there, but they're not necessarily being strictly enforced.
And a last question, did you see or notice a difference between a company who provides a service like a bank or financial institution and a manufacturer like the jeans, the denim manufacturer? So were there, let's say, did they really put their idea of getting more or achieving sustainability, did they put this into action?
Okay.
So any information on this?
For example, with the denim manufacturer, they have to follow strict standards because they export their products. So if they don't follow specific sustainability standards, their products don't get exported. So for them, it's kind of, they have to do this. It's not really an option. Otherwise, they're out of business. And for banks, it differed depending on the bank. So one of the banks, for example, was, it's part of an Italian group. And so they had to also follow this group's rules in terms of sustainability versus another bank that is just Egyptian. They're just starting out with the process, so they're still figuring out how to go about it.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. I think we can close at that. There are no further comments or questions. Thank you very much, Dr. Aggie. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you, Yasmin, for the presentation. Thank you all for joining us today. Please do follow our activities on the MSAR page, and we look forward to receiving your submissions and to engaging further with you locally and internationally. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.